episode of Tate's Take. Matter of fact, in episode number 95 of Tate's Take. We like to call it, as you know, unless you've been living under a rock, the best, the most entertaining, the most informational, and the most educational basketball content on the planet in the form of a podcast. Remember to go and follow along on all social media platforms at Tate's Take Hoops, TATESTAKEHOOPS. Hashtag, we like to call it where basketball lives. And I've got some breaking news for you guys, obviously. Got some new projects that I've kind of been working on and some things that are in the mix, some things that I've been working diligently, consistently, persistently on. But stick around after this very intriguing interview that I have with my special guest who's currently in the green room, and going to get ready to bring him up here in just a second. Amid the other breaking news, hence why I'm bringing him on. But even more so, make sure you do your part. Go and subscribe anywhere you find your favorite podcasts: iTunes, Google Podcasts, Red Circle, Spotify, Stitcher, the whole nine. And as you know, we always tell everybody that because you have a voice here on this platform, make sure you go and tell your mama, tell your grandmama, tell your baby mama as well. So go and find it any and everywhere. Go and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have already, go and tell a friend. Don't save it for the local barbershop, and don't save it for the local sports bar. Now, what I want to do is get ready to bring in my very talented guest. And there's a very interesting story that goes behind this, but I want to make sure that I do my due diligence and make sure that I bring him on with us so that he can be a part of the conversation, because I'm not sure that I know anybody, whether it be basketball, obviously football. The guy just, for me personally, doesn't need much of an introduction. Vincent Turner, a podcast host, sports historian, and Memphis Tigers #1 fan. Make sure that you go and follow him along at Best Mr. Football. That is at Best Mr. Football. He is the podcast host of the 100 Yards of Football podcast. Mr. Vincent Turner, top of the evening to you, and how are you doing today? I would imagine I can see the grin, the smiling from ear to ear. I can imagine that you're doing very well, but I thought I'd ask you anyway. How's it going?
Hey, man, I'm doing fantastic. I'm blessed. First of all, I'm blessed to come on your platform, a platform that's ascending to its highest level. And what more can I say, man? It's been a beautiful day here in the Metro Atlanta area. And hey, it's basketball time in my home city of Memphis, Tennessee, the 901.
You know what? I'm glad that you say that, because I want to share with the people just a small portion of the story, trying not to extend it out too far. But when the people see Deshaun Tate and you see me with a platform or with my own outlet under my own umbrella, amongst other things, and just trying to find a way to find my niche and find my place in this business. The very, very first person, not saying other people didn't matter. Everybody kind of had their hand in when they did. But when you look at Mr. Vincent Turner, you're looking at the very first person, I guess, to discover, if I'm big enough to say that yet, Deshaun Tate, and give me an opportunity to be able to get on multiple different platforms and just be able to share my expertise. And this brother seen my vision and seen some value in me. So, of course, I have to make sure I preface things by saying that, and saying a huge thank you for allowing me to be rolling with you for now. I think 2021, I think we got started in 2011, so 10 years now. So I do want to make sure that I say thank you and give you your flowers.
Well, like I said, I really appreciate that coming from you. It couldn't be nothing but a blessing. But, man, you did the work. You put the time in. When you came with me, I remember one thing that we talked about is that you said, hey, man, all I'm going to focus on, I'm a college basketball guy. I know the game inside out. And you worked and paid the grind. And a lot of people don't understand where you came from, because we was at this station that I'm not going to name. There was some issues there. But at the end of the day, it shows you if you stay true to your game, don't listen to what people say, bank on your talent, then you can be a Deshaun Tate. And it's glad to see you where you at, young man. You earned every bit of it. Then nobody give this young man anything. He earned it through hard work, grind, and coming from, I want to say, not so much the bottom level, but paying the price, what you have to do in this business: research, Believe in yourself, not listen to nobody else, and put your talents out there. And it's great to see where your podcast is and the great guests you have. And I'm honored to be on your podcast tonight, my man. Everything
on your son.
And many blessings. You earned it 100.
Thanks much. I appreciate that, Mr. Vince, and you know, for the kind gestures and just noticing that, you know, it's not always the easiest thing. Sometimes you got to step out there on faith for whatever it takes and bet on yourself. And I don't know if you're trying to make me shed a tear here on the evening, but I think that before I do that, it is a little bit of a draft coming through. So I don't want to shed a tear with the stories, but what we ultimately are here for is a big piece of breaking news, obviously just coming down within the last 24 hours. 5-star phenom. I mean, we can say so many different things. A lot of people calling the guy generational talent, among so many other things. Imani Bates has committed to your Memphis Tigers, decommit from Michigan State, recommit now, and choosing to roll down there in Memphis with the Memphis Tigers. Tell me this, in such a short, small time and window that you've had since seeing that Imani is deciding to take his talents to the M-Town, to Memphis. What are you hearing that the buzz is around the city and just some of the rumblings around the town from things that, whether it be things that you've read, people that you've talked to, and so forth?
Well, I want to say this. Memphis, a lot of people don't know from a college basketball perspective, has a lot of history. And before I bring up Imani Bates, I'll be wrong being a fan of Memphis so long since I was in my teens and not mention Larry Finch. He's the one that started this and really put us on this map. So I want to give kudos to Larry Finch and his family for making me proud of my school in the city of Memphis. Now, what I've heard has been like something unbelievable. Beale Street rocking. You know, the fan base can get a little crazy when situations happen like this. But now what I heard within the last 24 hours, Elite Eight, Final Four, maybe the best team in Tiger history. Cameras coming. All eyes on the city of Memphis. Larry Brown has brought a buzz. The hiring of Rasheed Wallace today. It's just been unbelievable. And the people I've talked to are walking around with a lot of pride, and really they're in a state of shock. Because if you would have told me, and you know me, you know how me and you go back and forth, John, that a player coming out of the state of Michigan, decommitting from your Spartan, Spotty, who made the face of Sports Illustrated 2 years ago, would have been committed to the University of Memphis, I would have told you you're out of your mind. You're insane. But the feeling in Memphis is unbelievable. The radio talk shows there in Memphis, WHBQ, 92.9 ESPN is off the change. People are just excited, man. I never envisioned this. I never thought that with the two players that signed in the last 2 weeks, Jalen Duren and Imani Bates, that it would ever happen in the city of Memphis. And granted, Memphis has had a lot of great history, but right now I would say all eyes on the state of Tennessee and on the Memphis, Tennessee, that little town off the Mississippi River. And it's
I got you. Now,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish up.
And then finally, it's like, back in the day, you might have not been born, I'm sorry, but it was a song that was out like in the mid-1980s by Stevie Arrington out of Dayton, Ohio, and he had a song, "Oh, Watching You." That's how it feels now. Everything from a college basketball perspective is ascending on Memphis, Tennessee, and that's where I'm from.
I got you. So with that being said, you know, I kind of, the way I see Memphis is, I don't think it's much of a secret. Definitely, I can't speak so much for it since as John Morant has been in Memphis, or since Cal has left and departed ways, and, you know, obviously going on to Lexington, and obviously there was that stint with Josh Pastner. But this has always essentially been, and correct me if I'm wrong, this has been the NBA team talking about the Memphis Tigers for such a
Um,
long time. If it's okay to say that in all respectful ways to the Grizzlies, but the people there, they bleed blue, obviously, and they're all about their Memphis Tigers. Really huge, basketball town and things like that. You talked a little bit about some of the things that you're hearing within the state of Memphis. I'm sorry, within the city of Memphis and the different, talks around town and things like that. What would you say is the bare bottom of what this team has to achieve? So when you start talking about the recruiting, when you start talking about the coaching staff being beefed up with Larry Brown and Rasheed Wallace, and obviously Penny turning down Orlando, I would imagine because he felt like there was something that could be really special to happen here in Memphis, and this actually coming to fruition now. Those things have to come into those things have to play out. It's not a secret that Coach Cal has had some really good teams studded with freshmen. He's won one title with those guys. The same thing with Coach K and Duke in 2015. Where are you in terms of where this team, at least they have to get to this point over here for it not to be considered a disappointing season when it comes to the NCAA tournament? What is this point right here for you, Vance?
I'm a realist, and I'm not going to be a bored fan tonight. With this team right here, what I like about it and my expectations, at least a Sweet 16 berth, and then maybe a little bit of Elite Eight. It's real hard to get to the Final Four because a lot of things got to play in place. You got to have good guard play. You got to have certain things fall in the bracket, certain teams fall your way. And I'm understanding of that. But when I look at this squad and what makes me have my expectations, I'm going to go on and say Elite Eight is number one. This is a very experienced basketball team. I almost said football, excuse me. DeAndre Williams was huge for them, him coming back this season. Very mature guy, 24 years old, had a great stint at Evansville. You knew about that. Then came with us, didn't get eligible to the second half, and you saw how that team took off with his leadership and his abilities on the floor. Landis Noley came on at the end of the year, transferred from Virginia Tech, ended up being the NIT MVP. Lester Kunis, who I thought at the end of the year was their best player overall. Alex Lomax, there are some questions as him, but he's a senior, hometown guy. You got to think he's going to be more improving. Then you're looking at Tyler Harris, who originally committed to Memphis, played 2 years in Memphis, went to Iowa State, decided to come back home. A guy that can really shoot the ball. And then the recruiting class. Earl Timberlake, you know about him. Josh Miot, you know about him. John Camden. But before even Mr. Bates, even Mr. Durham came on, I thought this team was at least a team that can get to a Sweet 16 to get out of the first round. But I agree with that. With these pieces right here, the stakes go higher. Of course, they are guys that's never played on this level. And you know yourself, it's different. But to me, when you look at Memphis, it's almost like, I'm going to say Monty Bates has that type of feel that Derrick Rose had in 2008. Jalen Duren has that kind of feel of Precious Achiuwa. And those two players, you know what Derrick Rose did for us in 2008. He took us to the Final Four in the championship game. And Precious Achiuwa was our best player 2 years ago. And you see how he's performing in the NBA. That being said, I know it takes time for the team to come together. But when you look at, I'm just saying this, you know more than this than I do. From a basketball standpoint, you got everything made for your team. You got experience. You got guys who can go get buckets. You strong on the boards. Let me throw Malcolm Danielson Jr. out of Memphis East. Everything sets up for you and the Lawson brothers. And we got so much talent. I can't remember all the players, but I'm talking about a team that, to be honest, I like to see the first day of practice. How they going to go at it. But I understand this. It takes time to gel. Everything is not going to be roses from the start. You got a lot of guys, a lot of talent in the room. It's going to be competitive for playing time. But when it's all said and done, I think Penny Hardaway, the smartest thing he done was bringing 80-year-old Larry Brown onto his staff. And Mr. Brown has a national championship at Kansas. He has an NBA championship with your team, the Detroit Pistons, and he has a lot of experience. And he played under the great Dean Smith in North Carolina. I thought that right there cemented Penny from everybody else in this program before Mr. Bates and Mr. Jordan Sandy ascending us over the top.
Where do you presume that this team will be, or where they need to be in terms of within the conference? Because, and I also want to talk a little bit about some of the non-conference games that they're going to be a part of. Obviously, in the Barclays Center and Brooklyn is going to have some pretty good teams there. I want you to talk about that a little bit. And so, obviously the big matchup against Tennessee is going to be huge. That was the only game outside of the national championship game, I think, that they lost when they had a team similar to this in 2008 was that team to Tennessee. So I'm sure that everybody's going to be pumped up. They're going to have a really good team too. They got a really good recruiting class as well, coached by Rick Barnes, another really good coach. So just kind of want to get your take on some of the matchups that we will see so that people can have a familiar feel with who they're going to be, facing off against. And then even more so, what does this do for what do you believe that this does for those recruits in terms of, this being a year where the NIL is intact? What does the city of Memphis, what does some of those companies and what does that do for such a big recruiting class with high-powered, high-octane names like Jalen Duren and Imani Bates around there? What does that do for them in having somebody like a Penny and some of those other guys on the staff?
Well, I'm going to start with your first question. Within the conference, I think it's going to be a competitive conference. Of course, Memphis is going to be at the top. At best, I might see them losing 2 games because you still got a good SMU team that's got Kendrick Davis coming back, one of the unsung point guards in the country. You got a
transfer from TCU.
Yeah, correct. Then you got Central Florida, coached by Johnny Dawkins. They got Darius Perry. Remember him, played at Wheeler. Then went
down the road. Transfer from Louisville.
And then they got another good guy that was a good freshman last year, and Isaiah Davis. That's a good player. And then, of course, you got the Houston Cougars, baby. I mean, they're going to be tough.
Coming off the Final Four.
Whoever they got on staff, they got Mr. Sampson coming back as head coach. They got a good player, Marcus Sasser. Fabian White is a really hard-nosed player. Reggie Chaney. So the Cougars are going to be tough. But that being said, I expect my Tigers to not lose but 2 games in the conference and win the conference handily. Now, non-conference, they play up in the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Of course, you got Xavier, you got Virginia Tech. Mr. Landis Noley is going to be looking at that because he played at that school. And, of course, there's going to be some that he's going to want to start doing that a little bit. If what we mean by that. And then, of course, we broadcasting here in the Metro Atlanta area, December the 1st. I will be there. And we could tell a friend of ours, Joey T., who is a diehard Georgia Bulldog fan. It's not football, but the Tigers will be invading Steckman Coliseum, and I will be in there hollering Tiger Blue. And then you mentioned the matchup with Tennessee, which is December 18th. Hello, Rhonda. That's my sister. I've already told her to get her apartment ready because I'm coming. I'm going to be right there at Bridgestone Arena. And you're right, Tennessee has got a guy who's a highly recruited point guard. It's going to probably be one and done, Kennedy Chandler, who is also from the 901. So, man, the season is exciting. But I'm realistic. We're going to have a bullseye on our back. The Tigers are. ESPN is going to be following us around. I was thinking today, if you was talking about somebody having a reality show, it'd be perfect for Penny to have a reality show this season. But, hey, you know yourself, Deshaun. I'm trying to keep myself under composure here on your show this evening because I don't want to act crazy. But, I'm bubbling inside with excitement. I want to yell to the roof, hey, look at us. I want to call some people out. In Boston, you know who I'm talking about. In Atlanta, you know who I'm talking about. In New York, because y'all say the best basketball on the college level is played in them areas. But not this year. All eyes, like Stephen Arrington, I'm watching you. And I'm excited. But I'm realistic on this. There's some other good teams that gonna have a saying in that, like Gonzaga. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I like the non-conference schedule. I like the teams we playing. And basically, hey man, let's get it on. August the 24th. October 24th was our first exhibition game against Lamont on.
Okay, Vincent Turner podcast host, sports historian, if you can't tell already, and Memphis #1 fan, if you can't tell already. From the 100 Yards of Football podcast, make sure you go and give him a follow. This dude has been, he helped me in some very critical moments of my life professionally and on some personal levels as well. So I want to make sure I give him his flowers and all the credit where it's due and deserved. At Best Mr. Football on Twitter, again, at BESTMRFOOTBALL, at Best Mr. Football. Tell me, Vince, what you feel Penny has to do here with a class like this. Because, listen, this is what going on his 4th year, I feel like, now as the head coach of Memphis. And that first year, everybody's always going to give you somewhat of a pass. He has some pretty good kids, but he didn't have that experience under his belt as a head coach, not on this platform, on this level anyways. And then, of course, the following year, you get, a James Wiseman who didn't play, but you still had other really good players. Boogie Ellis now, who's decided to transfer amongst a couple others. Some guys have transferred out, some guys have transferred in. You talked a little bit about Nolly earlier coming in last year, but then in that same breath, you had a guy in Musa Cisse who was there last year and then transferred out to Oklahoma State. So now when you have so much going on, so much movement, so many moving pieces, you have to rely on these guys as currently on this team coming up this year. What is something that you feel like if he doesn't do anything else, he has to do this, whether that's win this many games or whether that's no matter what the case may be. It ain't even just about going to Final Four or Sweet 16 or whatever. If you can name one thing, Mr. Football, that Penny has to do with this particular team, what is that one thing that you feel like he has to do with this team?
It's very simple. Get everybody to buy in. I think that's the most critical part. When you bring a lot of 4 stars and 5 stars in, you know yourself, it's a different ball game because everybody's coming from a situation where they're the main. They're the one to talk about. But to me, I thought Penny handled that situation real well last year because he could have really lost that team when they got off to a slow start. But as I said before, the Andre Williams to me was the really telling part of that team regrouping and really doing well on the back end of the season and winning the NIT championship. And that was huge too. I think he gained a lot of respect. And there's no question about it. There was rumblings within the program. I wasn't close to the program. I just heard people talking. There was a lot of guys on the squad that was disgruntled, one getting shots, wasn't happy with their roles. But at the end of the day, they transferred out, and you saw what happened. Penny is a guy, hey, man, it's the next man up. And you see that they've been replaced, and they're not being talked about right now. And now Memphis is #1 on the map. But if I have to say one thing that I would say is that getting everybody to buy in from day one.
Is there a one thing though, Mr. Vince, that he has to achieve as a coach with this team? Is there one of those things that he has to do, no matter what it may be? Is there that one? I would imagine that one thing bare bottom would be that he has to make the NCAA tournament. I think that's fair, especially coming off the NIT championship.
Well, I could say this. I will walk to Atlanta from where I live at here in Douglasville, Georgia, which is about a 30-minute drive if the Tigers don't make the tournament. I see him as a lot to get in the NCAA. Hands off. Sure. I think for Penny, the pressure is on. But as I said before, what he has to do, if there's, as you say, as far as expectations for himself, at least a Sweet 16 and Elite. And to me, Elite 8 as a fan.
I got you, no doubt.
As a foul, as a tournament, I don't understand your question, but I know where you're going. But you already know we locked in the tournament. See, But at the end
Well,
of
I
the
don't
day,
think. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Mr. Vince, as respectful as I
come on,
possibly can be
come on,
about
come
this.
on.
Despite your, despite, listen. I mean, we talk. If I would have told you that, last year Duke was a lock for the tournament, and Kentucky's a lock for the tournament, and Michigan State's a lock, all of that would have been a total lie, and I would have been completely wrong, and I would have had to eat those words. So on the outside looking in, obviously, they are all but a lock for the NCAA tournament. But you know how this works, and now protocols and different things. I'm not sure where we're going to be at with that necessarily just yet before the season starts. But I'm not feeling the most comfortable as saying anybody is necessarily a lock. Sometimes I think that gets used a little. That term gets used a little bit too loosely. I want to show some love a little bit to Hoop Baller Scoop, who I'm not really sure if he's a he or she. I guess technically I can't really tell based on the picture, but
I like
is a subscriber or whatnot. But asking the question, obviously I'm gonna let Mr. Vince answer that briefly because we don't have very much time here left with Mr. Vince. Is Memphis the new NBA factory for top recruits? Precious Achua, probably the most notably recently. Or most notably in general is probably James Wiseman under the Penny Hardaway umbrella. What is your answer briefly to that question so that we can move forward?
I say the facts tell the truth, man. I mean, this year's squad, we know Mr. Bates is going to be in the NBA. We know Mr. Dorn is going to be in the NBA. I think Josh Mead has a great chance of playing at the next level. I think the Lawson brothers have a great chance. Earl Timberlake is an NBA prospect.
Very good player. Good player.
Don't ask me. He's from the D.C. area. All you got to do is ask Kevin Durant. He said
Very
he's
good.
one of the top 5 D.C. players that ever came out. So I would say, not to give disrespect to the Dukes or the Kentuckys or the UCLAs, but I would say probably so. Say probably so. And as I just mentioned, and I like what my man, Mr. Hoop Baller Scoops, just said. All I can say is you see right now, Mr. Tate on Tate's Take on this great podcast, the buzz of Memphis, Tennessee, the 901 is starting to come alive.
901, stand up. Let me ask you this. Of course, we got Vincent Turner in here joining us, talking a little bit about the Imani Bates and Jalen Duren and just some of the guys that are returning. Going to have a very, very good team. You mentioned something earlier regarding how this could go down as the best or certainly clearly near the top of the best teams that we've ever seen in Memphis history. Where do you think, on the outside looking in, with not seeing very much at all of what this team is capable of and what they can do, where do you think that this measures up with some of the best ones? Like, are you feeling very comfortable with saying that you think this surpasses the 08 team? Some of the other very, very good Calipari teams, DeJuan Wagner's team and some of those. Where do you think that this one is going to measure up? Where do you think, when it's all said and done, based on their recruitment, where it should end in terms of where they will be ranked amongst the best ones in Memphis history, and where you think that it will?
Well, me personally, and you can help me out on this, they say to reach the Final Four, you got to have at least 3 players that's going to be able to play in the NBA. When I look at this team and I look at all the great Tiger teams, I'm going to say the 72, 73 team, Larry Finch, Larry Keenan, who played in the NBA with the San Antonio Spurs, had a great career play beside George, the Iceman Gervin from your neck of the woods, Detroit, Michigan. And they had Ronnie Robinson. Those 3 great players. And then the 85 team. 2 players that win the NBA draft. They had 4 players that played in the league. What more can you say about Keith Lee? Probably one of the greatest college players ever. William Burford was a 6th overall pick when he came out. Andre Turner, who's been named head coach at Lane University. Kudos, Mr. Andre. I saw you playing high school, baby. And Vincent Askew, who's doing a lot of great things down there in Memphis as far as really helping the kids out with his foundation. That team was special. I thought that team could possibly, and I thought would win it all. That was the year, remember, they had 3 Big East teams that made the Final Four with St. John's, Chris Mullin, Mark Jackson. Georgetown was a heavily favored Patrick Ewing, but the Villanova team upset
Villanova.
Yeah, with Mr. Pinckney and Harold Jensen didn't miss a shot that night. And they had the other young man, I can't think of his name, but That Villanova team won it, but I thought that 85 team was special. And then the 2008 team.
But where does this one compare? Where does this one, when it's all said and done, where do they finish in comparison? When you talk about the best teams in the Memphis program, where do you believe that this one will finish in comparison to those ones? Because you just mentioned about 3 or 4 different really, really dynamic Memphis teams. Where does this one coming up, you believe, needs to and should, in your opinion, finish in comparison to those ones?
Well, I'm going to roll off what you said. On expectations, you kind of told me hold my horses because what happened last year to the pandemic, Duke, Kentucky, and your Michigan State Spartans had great teams. And they was favored going into the season with the pandemic. But with this team, if everything stays clear, the one thing about this team that separates all them teams I just mentioned, they got a lot of depth. They got a lot of good players outside of Money Bates and Jalen Dorn. This team is very
true
at every position.
That's true, and that's one thing that everybody is going to talk about.
Right. And they can go.
Everybody,
they can go big. They can go small. They got good players that's baseline and baseline quickness. But I like their overall depth. They can go at least 12 deep if you really look at their roster.
Well, you know, that's the thing, though, Mr. Vince, is that a lot of people are going to take note of Jalen Duren and Imani Bates. I'm not really sure exactly as to how good some of those other guys are. And I think that that's going to be a very key piece. I only got 2 more questions for you. And while we're at it, I want to make sure that the bills get paid, make sure that we're doing our part on all accounts, because that's a very, very big part of the show too, obviously. So I want to make sure that the people know exactly what we're doing here. The quick release typically is the quick release segment, sponsored and powered by Exotics Products by Curtis Smith. Look good, feel good, play great. Exoticsproducts.com. Give your skin what it deserves. About time that we finally get to a point where we can do that. All 110% natural products, no chemicals added. Just make sure when you get to that low checkout line, hit that discount code, Tate's Take, for your 15% off. Let me ask you this, Mr. Vincent. I know that we're kind of up against it and we only got a couple more minutes with you here. I want to play a little bit of fill in the blank with you for a second. Don't be surprised if blank. Of all the things that we can mention when it comes to this team this year, what is the one thing that you can tell the people? Don't be surprised if you see this happen. What is that?
Don't be surprised if Alex Lomax play at a level at the point guard position this year that he should have been playing over his years at Memphis. I think he's going to have a real good year based on the competition, the talent that's coming on that roster. He's a very headed player. When he was a freshman in high school, he was very highly recruited. He hasn't had that type of career in Memphis in his first 3 years, but don't be surprised if he be one of the main positive stakes of this basketball team this season.
I want to ask you about this too, though, Mr. Vince. If we're going to just let it be known for what it is, okay? You got guys that are now going back to their alma maters and coaching at schools and institutions of which they played. You know, you have Juwan Howard at Michigan doing things that a lot of people thought that Penny Hardaway was gonna do, but hasn't done yet. You've got as good or lack thereof in some cases, not so good of things of which Patrick Ewing has done at Georgetown, but he ended it on a very positive note by winning the Big East Conference tournament and making it to the Big Dance, something that we expect from Penny Hardaway. Yet again, haven't seen from him just yet. How much pressure is Penny Hardaway under, in your opinion, to now live up to some of those lofty expectations? Because now he's in the same, you mentioned it earlier, he's in the same conversation with Coach K. At some point, you got to get it done. If he's in the same conversation as Coach Cal, at some point, who's got to get it done? In this day and age, I feel like winning the recruiting battle is a bigger deal than winning a national championship, especially when it comes to job security. Talk about that pressure that Penny Hardaway, and of course, this is our last question, but talk about some of that pressure that Penny Hardaway is going to face, and some of that pressure that or trials, tribulations that he's going to have to make sure he overcomes, because it's easy to talk about getting the talent on the floor. That's the easy part. But to get these guys from a chemistry standpoint to coexist with one another, to work well together on the floor regularly, knowing 18 years old, flashing lights, cameras everywhere. I mean, it's Hollywood and Memphis at this point. Talk to me about some of the pressure that you think that Penny Hardaway is under and that you believe he's going to have to face, and what needs to happen to overcome that and make sure that the guys stay focused.
Well, I think right now, of course, he's under pressure that comes with getting the number one recruiting class. There's no doubt about it. All eyes are going to be on Memphis. But the one thing I love about Penny is that Penny's always been a guy that's been able to rise to the occasion. The only thing, he hasn't made the tournament, and he hasn't won yet on a big level. But think about 2 years ago when James Wiseman just opted out, and he took a lot of criticism for that. And then last year they got off to a slow start, and everybody on the college level was killing them. And but you saw he rebounded. Granted, it wasn't an NCAA championship, but whoever
got to start somewhere.
Yeah. But whoever would have thought that at this point right now, as we on your great show, that we have the number one recruiting class and getting two guys that are going to be legitimate all-stars in the NBA. But I want to end you with this. It's no question that Penny's got the pressure. But think about this. Okay. When Mike Krzyzewski took the Duke job, his first years, he didn't win. I think his first year he went 6-25, but he turned it around with a guy you had on the show, Jay Billis, and you saw what he built. And then think about this. The greatest coach ever at UCLA, John Wooden, didn't win his first national championship, I believe, until 12 to 15 years when he was in the job at UCLA. But times are different. But there was expectations for them two guys. So you're right. The pressure is going to be amazing. It's going to be, of course. But if you're talking about people that can step up, I think Penny Hardaway, not because he's coaching my team and he's from the city of Memphis, but think about this. Guy had a serious injury in the NBA. Before he had that injury, he was going on to do some great things in the level of great NBA players. He kind of stepped away from the game, kept quiet. Then he came back into coaching. And he won a couple of state championships at East High. Now he's got Memphis. Expectations are high. Pressure comes with that, baby. But one thing I believe in Penny Hardaway is that this year is going to be special. And as we say in the 901, remember this word, the smoke is coming. Because when you get down in adversity, you got to come back with the smoke. And me and you should know about that, where we came from in our days. And look at you
no doubt.
You regrouped and brought that smoke. That's all I got.
Pressure, one of two things pressure does: either bust pipes or make diamonds. That's one thing that I've always been told. And you better believe that while Penny Hardaway does definitely have his hands full, he has to still answer those questions. We know what type of, much like Juwan Howard at one point, we know what type of recruiter he's going to be. Not just necessarily so sure as to what type of coach he's going to be. Best of luck to Penny Hardaway. Best of luck to Jalen Duren, Imani Bates, the Tigers this upcoming season. It should be very interesting putting their name in the hat now with the Dukes and the Kentuckys and so forth to be able to go and get these top name kids. And it is definitely a huge achievement, but it's going to come with some pretty lofty expectations, as well as it should. So I'll be really interested to see exactly what's going to come of that. Vincent Turner, podcast host, sports historian. Make sure I mention that part. And Memphis #1 fan. I don't think they let me forget that part. From 100 Yards of Football podcast. Make sure you go and follow this dude. You're talking about football. I mean, listen, this dude doesn't just do football. He does basketball. I mean, you think he's intelligent and a historian when it comes to basketball? Listen to me. He helped create exactly this, of which you have subscribed and watching and listening to on a regular basis, being Deshaun Tate and Tate's Take on this platform underneath this umbrella and having this outlet. And again, we thank him for that opportunity to introduce me into radio from the very beginning. I've gotten some opportunities here and there after, but this is kind of where it all started with Mr. Vincent Turner and giving me an opportunity to share my expertise and some of my passion on the game. So make sure you go and give this dude a follow. Y'all love football. It's football season. Y'all know I don't like to admit it, but it is what it is. Football reigns supreme. This is the United States of America. Go and give this dude a listen. Go and give this dude a follow on Twitter at Best Mr. Football, at Best Mr. Football. Vincent Turner, I really appreciate you. And on your way out, please let the people know where they can find some of your content, how often that you're pushing some of your content, and what they can look forward to in some of your upcoming projects in the near future.
Well, basically, as you just mentioned, I'm on a platform on Facebook, which is at 100 Yards Football Sports Talk Radio. I put up videos every Monday and Wednesday. I got a great team behind me. Jeremiah Long, Logan Landers, Kevin the Bull Jones, who's a high school football coach here locally in North Atlanta. And we got a 12-year veteran, NFL greatness, Florida State finest, Mr. Bobby Butler. And all we do is talk football and try to tell the facts and be truthful about it and have fun. And that's plain and simple, and keep God first, baby.
Vincent Turner, thanks so much, man, for joining me. And we're going to do this again at some point. At some point, we're going to get into bringing on some different guests. A lot of people know that it's something that I like to do and get them to kind of break down different conferences, different programs, divisions, and things like that during our college basketball preview. So I would love for you to hopefully come back and join us, and we could talk a little bit more Memphis Tigers basketball and maybe some things about this recruiting class and the team, the program in general, that you've learned from this point until we meet again. And I do appreciate you for coming on, Mr. Vince.
Well, I like to say, hey, man, I'm very thankful, very grateful that you had me on. I'm very proud of you, man. Keep doing it. Man, you at the top. You're ascending. People out there, y'all don't know where this young man came from, but he earned every ounce of blood in what he's doing. And I hope everybody understands and is proud to see where you're at, because didn't nobody give you nothing. You earned every ounce. And before I leave, all I got to say, thank you for bringing me on, but I would be wrong if I didn't do this. Dun, 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 dun. Go Tigers, go. Thank you, brother. God bless you. Keep doing a great job, man.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Vince. I do appreciate it. Of course, you had to get out of here on that note, man. But dude, Mr. Vince, I want to thank you. And thank you all for who come in here and listen and persistently and consistently just kind of subscribing and spreading the word, sharing the word, and just helping a young brother's dreams come true. We're going to have some more interesting stuff coming about. We got more basketball on top of more basketball on top of more basketball to talk. So it is what I like to call the best 3-level podcast out there. And that's what we cover, all 3 levels of basketball. And, I always tell people, tell your mama, tell your grandmama, tell your baby mama where they can find the best, the most entertaining, the most informational, and the most educational basketball content on the planet in the form of a podcast, none other than Tate's Takes. So you always have a voice here on this platform. Don't save it for the local sports bars. Don't save it for the local barbershop. Bring it here. We talk it here, 94 feet long, 50 feet wide, 22 feet and 1 3/4 inches on the perimeter for college basketball, and 23 feet 1 1/4 inches out on the perimeter for NBA. So don't ask me how I remember all those dimensions. I'm terrible at basketball except for when it comes to shooting percentages. So thanks everybody for joining. We're gonna have some of this good stuff that's gonna be coming up in the near future. Make sure you spread the word of Tate's Take, the podcast. Find it anywhere that you find your favorite podcast, and that's going to now conclude episode number 95. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.